In the opening scene of this week's Torah reading, Parshat Vayera, Avraham is visited by three angels, and he receives two important messages from God. The first is very happy news. He and his wife Sarah are going to have a child. The second, very somber news, God's intention to destroy the city of Sedom. Why are these two very, very different messages combined in a single scene? Is this some kind of good news, bad news joke? Why does God mix business and pleasure in this way, as it were? Let's find out. Here's a quick outline of the sequence of events in the opening scene. First, three angels disguised as travelers, as human beings, appear to Avraham. He greets them, and Avraham and his wife Sarah show them very generous hospitality, serving them a lavish meal. The angels then announce that Avraham and his wife Sarah will have a baby in exactly 1 year. And then they get up to go, escorted by Avraham. If the story ended there, it would make perfect sense as a lovely standalone tale. But then we hear God speaking to himself. And actually, what the Torah says is that God had said to himself in a kind of past tense. In other words, this was in God's mind all along, as it were, what he was intending to discuss with Avraham, namely that he does not want to conceal from Avraham that he plans to destroy the city of Sedom, and he wants to hear Avraham's reaction. So then he goes ahead and reveals that plan. Meanwhile, the angels depart. They're headed off for Sedom, pending the final judgment. And Avraham pleads and negotiates with God to save Sedom. My question is why two such different messages, one so happy and one so somber, are put together literally back to back in this way. Why would God time the announcement of Yitzchak's birth right before, immediately before, launching into a discussion, very, very serious discussion about the destruction of the city of Sedom with Avraham? I'm kidding, of course, but it almost feels like one of these good news, bad news jokes. Got some good news and some bad news for you. What do you want first? But more seriously, it feels almost jarring, almost kind of distasteful. Avraham and Sarah are informed that the dream of their lifetime is finally going to come true. Sarah is 90 years old. She's been childless. Avraham is 100. And they're actually going to miraculously have a child together. And somehow that joyous moment is followed almost immediately by a conversation about the residents of Sedom are going to be annihilated. And Avraham steps in to defend them. What is behind the juxtaposition by God of these two conversations? Some of you may recall that God actually told Avraham already, privately, in the previous chapter, that he would have a son with Sarah. But the same question stands, maybe even stronger. Why reaffirm that wonderful promise just at this moment? What occurred to me is that this kind of juxtaposition, where God tells his trusted servant, his prophet, you're going to have a child or children, and I'm going to destroy, I'm angry with, and I'm going to destroy these other people, not you. These other, you're fine. I'm going to destroy these other people. And then the prophet steps up and pleads and intervenes. That's actually a familiar scene later in the Torah. It occurs not once, but twice with Moses, with Moshe Rabbeinu, at the sin of the golden calf, and also the so-called sin of the spies, when Israel rejects the idea of going into the land of Israel. They want to go back to Egypt because they've heard reports from scouts that they sent ahead that they don't like. Both of those situations, God says, I've had it. He tells Moshe, his trusted servant, he says, I've had it with these people. No matter what I've done for them, they still don't have faith. They still don't follow me faithfully. I'm going to wipe them out, finished, and start over with you. You'll become the great people. On both of those occasions, Moshe says nothing doing. He's not going to settle for that. His heart and his care and concern is for the people, and he debates and argues and tries to argue whatever merit he can and pleads and prays that God should spare the people of Israel, and his prayers are successful. So what is the point of this offer that God puts on the table? I'll make you into a great nation. I think what it comes to show us is to more clearly spotlight and kind of isolate on the selflessness of Moshe, that he has nothing personally at stake. He's going to be fine. The issue, he's not begging and pleading and praying here for his own skin. The skin in this game is really that he cares in his heart about the people. He loves his people, he cares about them, and he's putting himself out on their behalf. It's not to save his own skin. My suggestion is that the same portrait is being painted in our story about Avraham. God begins with an announcement through the angels, an announcement to Sarah, a reminder to Avraham that they have nothing to worry about, in a sense. Their future is secure. Even though they're elderly and haven't had a child together yet, Isaac is on the way. Yitzchak is he's in the pipeline, and their future, their descendants, their legacy is secure. So now there are these neighbors, these unruly neighbors that God tells Avraham, they're going to be destroyed. I'm going to destroy them. Avraham's response to that comes from a place of complete selflessness. If anything, those neighbors represent potential competition for his descendants in the centuries ahead. But Avraham doesn't think about his own skin. He's only thinking about his care and concern for other human beings suffering and lives. And if any shred of merit, of good, can be found in those cities, Avraham pleads and argues and debates for greater patience and mercy. Avraham wrestled with God over the fate of the city of Sedom. He pleaded that the city be spared, and he tried persistently to find some basis, some justification for greater mercy and patience. And Avraham did this even though they were not his friends or allies, just other human beings. Avraham had nothing personal to gain from the saving of Sedom. What can we learn from Avraham's example? Can we be inspired in our world to look at each other with greater compassion, understanding, and patience in the courtroom of our heart, and not focus solely on personal interest? Can we strive a bit harder to find a basis to give each other greater empathy and respect? These are much needed values in our world. I'll see you next time in the deep end.